And employment in South Africa's formal and non-farm sector nudged up by 0.1% in the third quarter. The decrease in mining jobs was offset by additions to the retail and financial sectors. Stats SA said 10,000 people were added to formal industries, bringing the total number of workers in South Africa to 8.44 million. On a year-on-year basis, the increase in employment amounted to 1% in the third quarter. Well, joining us now to dissect these jobs figures, Michael Bagram, Labour lawyer and partner at Bagram's Attorneys. Michael, thank you very much for your time. So let's get your view on the 0.1% increase that we saw there, 10,000 jobs added in October. I mean, what was your take on the numbers traditionally and, looking at the kind of traditional numbers we do see at this period of time?
Yeah, I think we got big problems because we look at the mining industry and we look at the farming industry, and both of these industries have almost destroyed our statistics completely. This is the time of the year where we start cooking in South Africa. This is the time of the year when we have the financial sector, the retail sector, they start growing. There's employment. I've noticed that with our client base here in Cape Town, they're employing people in the retail sector. So it's starting to happen. And yet people don't have money to spend because that money that should have been flowing into the system from here in the Cape, for instance, in the farming sector is not there. Mm-hmm. And up in Gauteng and those regions, we're seeing that a lot of people are not getting the money to spend from the mining sector. So we've got a real problem. Over and above all this, you must understand that for about 10 years now, we've had a 25% unemployment within the workforce, which is a real problem, which means that 25% of the employable people in South Africa have no income whatsoever and aren't able to spend money in the economy. So yes, we've had some good news. There's been a bit of growth. It's a 1% growth in the third quarter. I suspect it's going to be worse in the fourth quarter because the mining is still retrenching. Mm-hmm. And of course the farmers are now all looking at the possibility of retrenchment. So we've got a problem. Mining contributes, they say it's about 15% of our GDP. If that's 15% of our GDP, you can see how much money would have gone into the pockets of the workers, of the miners, mm-hmm. and that money isn't there to be distributed. So this is bad news. The strikes, the mass strikes that we've had in those two particular industries have created big problems for us here in South Africa today.
I mean, just looking at that mining sector shedding 15,000 jobs, so that's the number you're really alluding to there. And as you say, you don't know how much longer this will go on for because mines are all looking at how they operate right now, perhaps moving towards mechanization and looking at their labor needs in light of what's taken place this year and perhaps saying, next year, we don't want to be in the same situation and be vulnerable to perhaps more wildcat strikes.
Yeah, in fact, we know for a fact that the mines are all looking at mechanization. We also know that the mines have called in experts to have a look at how they can run their systems more efficiently. We know that 15,000 is going to double. There'll be 30,000 people shed from that industry. That's just that industry. But we know that manufacturing feeds into that industry. So if we've got the manufacturing sector who are now not manufacturing because we're not needing it for the mines at the moment, so that's also, and that's a big sector. That's the engine room of our economy. And if that's the engine room of our economy, I think we've got problems. And I think this fourth quarter is not going to be good news. What we really need to do is we need the message to get to the trade unions that they can't use people as cannon fodder, that we're going to have to look at a new system of negotiations, and we've got to keep South Africa first. It can't be us versus them or employer versus employee. It can't be that anymore. Mm-hmm. We need to know that we're in SHIP South Africa, and SHIP South Africa has developed a hole, and we need something to do about it.
Now let's look at the wages component of this, because gross earnings up by 8% year on year in the month, and just looking at that kind of average sitting at 13,000 Rand, 960 Rand, but in the government sector sitting at almost 16,500 Rand, and in electricity, gas and water supply, the average wage over 28,000 Rand. I mean, you look at these numbers here and you see that government has really been the driver of wage increases. What do you make of that?
Well, I think over and above the driver of wage increases, and you're absolutely correct, they're also the driver of employment. Now, if government is going to create jobs, that doesn't put money into the fiscus. That takes money out of the fiscus. Government doesn't produce. They're not into manufacturing, they're not into mining, they do nothing. Government runs the economy in the sense that they try and oversee it, but they're the people creating the biggest amount of jobs. And then also what they're doing is that they're driving the minimum wages up and up all the time. I know we're just about on the cusp of our minister talking about the agriculture. That's going to push us into bankruptcy. It has to eventually. You can't chase the one against the other. You can't keep giving higher wages, and then obviously the higher wages will drive the goods up. We've got a problem here in South Africa. So we need government to settle down after Mangaung. We need the ANC to have a careful look at their relationship with COSATU. And at the end of the day, we all need to understand that jobs and job creation doesn't come with the phrase decent jobs. We've got 25% of those people unemployed. They don't want to hear about decent jobs. They want to hear about getting into the economy in the first place. I'm not looking for slave labor. What we're looking for is jobs that people can enter into the marketplace and start producing. The manufacturing sector is something that we need to support very strongly.